didn't start with Boruto. No, it started long before Boruto. In fact, it started before Shippuden. Because if we're genuinely gonna sit down and talk about characters who never reached their full potential, there's really only two that are worth mentioning. Those would be Neji and Rock Lee. Today, we're gonna be talking about Rock Lee. See, the problem with both of these
Rock Lee is the single greatest example of Naruto betraying its own message. Not Sakura, not Neji, not even the war arc power scaling. Rock Lee. Because Rock Lee represented everything Naruto pretended the story was about: hard work, perseverance, and overcoming natural limitations. And then the series quietly shoved him into the background once destiny and bloodlines took over. When Rock Lee was introduced during the Chunin Exams, he immediately stood out. No ninjutsu, no genjutsu, no clan hacks, no demon fox. Just raw physical training taken to a superhuman extreme. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't arrogant, and he wasn't born special. He was living proof that effort could compete with talent. For a brief moment, Naruto felt honest about its themes. Then the series abandoned him.
Characters is that they were both technically supposed to die during the Sasuke retrieval arc. Neji was supposed to die from the wounds inflicted by Spider-Mouth guy, and Rock Lee was either supposed to die in his battle against Gaara or Kimimaro. However, Kishimoto's editors talked him out of doing this because both Rock Lee and Neji were popular with international audiences, and therefore killing off Neji and or Rock Lee that early in the manga would have deterred international readers from keeping up with Naruto. But because both Rock Lee and Neji were supposed to die in the early days of Naruto, Kishimoto had no plan for them. There was no storyboarding them into Shippuden. They were supposed to be gone long ago. Because of this, both of them get placed on the back burner and hard. And while obviously Neji's wasted potential is a travesty, I take Rock Lee's a lot more personally, which is why today we're talking about how Rock Lee was wasted. For potential, some of us live up to it, some of us don't. Potential in itself is a double-edged sword, because only those with the capability of being great ever have potential, but those with the capability of being great are expected to become great. Those who aren't deemed to have any potential in the first place but still become great are true zero-to-hero stories. And zero-to-hero stories is exactly what Naruto is all about. Naruto at its core is a story about those with no potential overcoming the limits imposed upon them by those around them. And while obviously Naruto is the best,
Rock Lee's fight against Gaara is still one of the most iconic battles in all of Naruto, and that alone proves how much potential the character had. The moment Lee dropped the weights wasn't just hype, it was symbolic. It told the audience that this character had sacrificed everything for strength. And when he opened the gates, it wasn't triumphant, it was terrifying. His body breaking under the cost of power was the clearest consequence-driven moment in early Naruto, and then nothing. Lee loses, is crippled, recovers, and then never matters again in a meaningful way. This is where Naruto's writing problem becomes obvious. Lee's injury should have been a turning point, either a tragic lesson about limits or the start of a long, painful climb back to relevance. Instead, it becomes a footnote. After his surgery, Lee returns to fighting shape far too easily, eliminating the long-term consequences that gave his arc weight in the first place. By the time Naruto Shippuden begins, Rock Lee is already obsolete.
Example of this being a scruffy orphan abandoned as a baby with no parents to raise him, no real ability, and the only true thing to his name being a curse that lives inside of him in the form of a demon fox. And the story of how that child with everything going against him was able to rise to the highest rank of a ninja. Hokage. That child who was once banished by all those around him, treated like trash on the side of the road, brought these people together, saved them multiple times, and began to lead them. Now, say what you will about Naruto's potential as a child. Many people, myself included, say that while Naruto in the beginning of Naruto was deemed to have no potential because the only thing he had going for him was Kurama, but down the line, the whole narrative storyline of having no potential is absolutely destroyed by the fact that his parents were two of the strongest ninjas in the history of Konoha. He's a reincarnation of God, and Kurama is stronger than all of the other tailed beasts combined. If you ask me, the only thing Naruto had as a child was potential. But this video isn't about Naruto. This video is about somebody who, to this day in Boruto, represents somebody who was born with nothing, trying to achieve everything. But the everything that this person achieved was much less than the everything that Naruto achieved. Even though one could argue that his children, these two children, Naruto and Rock Lee, had the same amount of potential, which is 0. See, from the very beginning of Naruto, Rock Lee and Naruto have been two sides of the same coin. People tend to say that Sasuke and Naruto are two sides of the same coin, and to a degree they are. However, Naruto and Sasuke are two sides of the same coin when you talk about emotional situation, as they both lost everyone near and dear to them, but they both approached that life event very differently. With Sasuke replacing the love he didn't get from his family with hatred, and Naruto replacing it with hope. But as it pertains to potential, even though Naruto and Sasuke are eventually revealed to be Indra and Ashura's reincarnations, to say
As the series escalates into god-tier power levels, Lee's entire philosophy gets invalidated. Hard work stops mattering, training stops mattering, strategy stops mattering. What matters is lineage. Kekkei Genkai, reincarnation, prophecy. Lee never stood a chance. Not because of in-universe logic, but because the story no longer cared about what he represented. And that's what makes his wasted potential so frustrating. Naruto didn't fail Lee accidentally, it failed him deliberately by changing its priorities. Think about how often Rock Lee actually influences the plot after the Chunin Exams. He shows up. He kicks someone. He disappears. He's present, but irrelevant. He exists to remind fans of what Naruto used to be, not what it became. Even characters like Neji, who shared similar themes, received more narrative attention. Neji at least had a conclusion, flawed as it was. Lee didn't even get that courtesy. He never surpasses his teacher. He never challenges the system. He never proves that taijutsu alone can rival the gods Naruto eventually fights.
Lee didn't even get any fights against Edo Tensei Shinobi in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. The only legitimately slightly impressive feat we have from Rock Lee that is canon happened in the last, when he and the Suicide Corps, who are a bunch of people he trained to use the 8th gates, kick a meteor in half. But to give the entirety of that credit to Rock Lee when there's like 6 other dudes in the 7th gate kicking the meteor with him, it's kind of a stretch. Ironically, Rock Lee's greatest feats are his failures. Almost beating Gaara, almost beating Kimimaro, holding his own against the Sound Village Ninja for a couple of minutes. That's it. But even if you do want to say that Rock Lee is strong, even though I believe people who say that Rock Lee is strong are conflating his strength with Might Guy's, think about the reason that Rock Lee got strong in the first place: to protect those close to it. It's built into the credo of using the 8th gates. You're only ever able to use it if you're protecting somebody near and dear to you. And he doesn't even achieve that. Who are the 3 people closest to Rock Lee? Might Guy, Tenten, Neji. His team. Now, Tenten never needed protection. You don't need protection if you don't show up. Can't be killed if you're not on screen. But Might Guy and Neji needed protection. Might Guy went toe-to-toe with Madara, opened the 8th gate. Now, one could argue that Might Guy did this to protect Rock Lee and all of the other shinobi, and he absolutely did. But after seeing the valiant sacrifice of his sensei, why didn't he step up? As Madara was regenerating half of him that Might Guy had kicked off with Night Guy, why didn't Rock Lee step up? Why didn't Rock Lee see that Might Guy was giving it his all and decide to open the 8th gate as well and die by the side of the person that he loved most? And don't even get me started on Neji. Rock Lee was nowhere around to save Neji from the sticks. In fact, Neji was doing a better job of protecting those around him than Rock Lee. And now all of this strength that Rock Lee has built up over the last couple of years that was supposed to protect those close to him isn't. As Neji, the antithesis of hard work, the natural born genius, is actually embodying the idea of protecting those around him better.
The worst offense comes during the war arc, where Rock Lee should have been indispensable. This was the perfect opportunity to reassert his importance. A massive battlefield, countless enemies, no time for complicated jutsu. Pure physical combat should have been Lee's domain. Instead, he's sidelined again. The war arc introduces literal reincarnated demigods, meteors falling from the sky, and reality-warping powers. And Rock Lee is reduced to background choreography. When your hard work beats talent character can't even keep up in a war setting, the message collapses completely. Fans often argue that Lee was never meant to be important long-term, but that's a weak excuse. If that were true, he never should have been written as powerfully as he was in the first place. You don't give a side character one of the most emotionally impactful fights in the series just to abandon them unless you lost interest or direction.
Even in Boruto, Rock Lee has been thrown away as a character. Sure, he shows up occasionally in anime canon episodes, but in the manga, he might as well not even exist. Which is ironic because in this new era where we're fighting against Otsutsuki with karma markings or Rinnegan's in their palm that are able to nullify things like Genjutsu and Ninjutsu, the importance of Taijutsu has skyrocketed. Ishiki invaded Konoha and left almost the entirety of the Konoha 13 in the dust, when in actuality, with just the powers of the 8th gate, Rock Lee would have been a good battle against the Ishiki. But Rock Lee's role in trying to repel Ishiki is so inconsequential, we don't even see the Konoha 13 struggle against it. Now,
What makes this worse is that Naruto kept pretending it still valued effort. Naruto himself constantly talks about hard work, despite being the most genetically blessed character in the series. That hypocrisy becomes obvious when you compare Naruto's endless power-ups to Lee's stagnation. Rock Lee trained his body to destruction and paid real consequences. Naruto trained sometimes and got divine upgrades. Lee should have been the counterpoint to destiny. Instead, he became proof that destiny always wins in Naruto. And let's be honest, if Rock Lee had been allowed to remain relevant, Naruto's ending wouldn't work. The moment a normal human beats or rivals god-tier characters through discipline alone, the reincarnation twist collapses. So Lee had to be sidelined. His existence was inconvenient to the story Naruto wanted to tell later. That's why fans still cling to Rock Lee. He represents a version of Naruto that never fully existed, one where effort mattered more than bloodline, one where limitations weren't erased by prophecy, one where power had cost. Rock Lee wasn't wasted because he was weak. He was wasted because he was too strong thematically. He threatened the narrative direction Naruto chose. If Naruto truly believed in its original message, Rock Lee would have stood alongside Naruto and Sasuke at the end, not as their equal in raw power, but as their moral equal, proof that another path existed. Instead, he was reduced to a nostalgic reminder of better writing. Rock Lee deserved more fights, more development, more consequences, more respect. Naruto didn't just waste Rock Lee's potential. It exposed its own hypocrisy by doing so, and that's why this take makes Naruto fans uncomfortable. Because deep down, they know it's true.